Hey, what's good my fellow masters? So on my Oberon rolls video, there were a few comments on Oberon's Interlude quest and how surprisingly difficult it turned out to be. There was even a request for me to do a guide, which is the purpose of this video. I had actually been putting off doing Oberon's Interlude on my JP account, mainly due to not really being in a rush to unlock his 3rd and 4th ascensions. Of course, if there was also some SQ in their completion reward, I might have made more of an effort. But I actually didn't know it wasn't your run-of-the-mill interlude quest like I had expected. After seeing some comments on it, I decided to take a look and was surprised at how troublesome the gimmicks seemed to be. Thus, here is a quick overview of those gimmicks to help my fellow masters that have yet to tackle this quest and maybe still making their way through Lost Belt 6 like I am. This interlude is a Spirit Origin release quest for Oberon. It will only become available when Oberon has been raised to at least his 3rd ascension and Lost Belt 6 Avalon Le Fay has been completed. Clearing this interlude quest will unlock Oberon's 3rd ascension and his final ascension art. The battle is just against one enemy, a shadow version of the Pretender class Oberon himself. He has 3 HP bars, with the first one being 172,000, not that bad of an HP amount. But then his 2nd and 3rd ones are much beefier, being 355,000 and 473,000 respectively. Oberon possesses the Earth attribute and has an alignment of chaotic evil. His traits consist of Dragon, Fae, Humanoid, King, Riding, Servant, and Threat to humanity. Naturally, his regular skills will be available to him with slight adjustments to favor him as an NPC boss. Evening Shroud will give him an increase to his MP strength for 3 turns and raise his MP gauge by 1 tick. Morning Lark will give Oberon 2 ticks on his NP gauge, plus buff his critical rate 20% lasting for 2 turns. Then Ending of Dreams, his 3rd skill, will buff his Buster performance by 50% for a turn, along with the acclaimed boost to MP strength by 100% for 1 turn. Lucky for Oberon, he doesn't have to deal with any demerits that his playable version has. Oberon's MP hasn't been adjusted, still being Area of Effect, inflicting sleep on all targets for a turn after the damage is done, while also granting the target's invincibility for 1 turn to ensure their sleep isn't disturbed. It will also do extra damage to any targets that have the lawful alignment, something to take into account when choosing your team. If all you had to contend with was a shadow NPC of Oberon, the quest wouldn't really merit too much caution. But of course, it wouldn't be that straightforward, and there are quite a number of gimmicks that make this fight rather annoying. To begin with, from the very outset, Oberon will put a random member of your front line to sleep for 3 turns. The party also gets a delayed 3-turn debuff that reduces everyone's HP by 2,000 per turn, and Oberon's MP gauge is increased a tick per turn. Please keep in mind that he will use this skill again every few turns or so. When you get through his 1st HP bar, the break effect gives Suspiron an unremovable critical hit damage resistance of 30%. But that's not all. The front line loses all of their buffs. Man, I just hate being on the receiving end of buff removal, don't you? In addition, there is an unremovable debuff placed on the party which triggers every turn. When triggered, one of these 3 effects is randomly applied. The first effect is an increased hit count for the Servant, effectively doubling it for 1 turn. But at the same time, the affected Servant's crit star generation is reduced by 200%. The second effect is a reduction to a Servant's attack by 50% and a buff to their defense for the same amount, both lasting for 1 turn. Then, just to mess with us, the icons displayed representing these effects are reversed, so the attack buff looks like a buff and the defense buff looks like a debuff. The last effect lowers the affected Servant's MP gain by 100%, but on the flip side, buffs their art's performance by 100%, again both for 1 turn. And like the second effect, the icons that show up for these effects show the opposite of what they really are. After you fight through that and break Oberon's 2nd HP bar and are now on his remaining 473,000 hit points, he gets a 5-time evade, with a misleading icon that depicts a sure hit buff. Mothman will also get one of these 6 random effects every turn. The first is a 1-turn buff of 100% to his quick resistance. The 2nd and 3rd effects are basically the same, but for arts and buster resistance respectively. Effect 4 turns things around in our favor, reducing his quick resistance by 100% for a turn. Likewise, effects 5 and 6 cover the reduction of his arts and buster resistance for 1 turn. Unfortunately, Oberon is not very forthcoming with which effect he has applied to himself. All of those 6 effects use the icon indicating resist up, regardless of whether it's a resist up or down effect. You will only be able to tell once he's actually attacked, and hopefully it doesn't turn out to be a turn with a wasted NP against him. All in all, the gimmicks that Oberon throws at you are, in a word, troublesome. At least to me. Here are some things that jump out at me as probably needing to be mitigated as best as possible. The random 3-turn sleep at the beginning of the battle can really stall your offense at the start, which is one of the biggest advantages this game provides, the opening attack usually being ours. So having some way to remove the sleep will be very helpful, either a servant with a debuff removal skill like Nightingale Santa, or through an MP effect like Astoria. You just have to hope the servant with the debuff removal doesn't get hit with it. Alternatively, there is the Atlas Academy Mystic Code as well. Here, I use the Taunt CE Outrage on a level 1 Benkei to deal with it. The buff removal break bar effect is another thing to avoid if possible. Using all of your support skills at the beginning only to then get them almost immediately removed can just kill your momentum and make the fight more of a slog. Medea Lily or Nightingale Santa could be of use for their targetable buff removal resistance. Here, I just live with it by staggering my supports. And then there is the 5-time evade when Oberon is down to his last HP bar. Like the others I mentioned, not having a way to deal with it can hinder your offense, giving Oberon that much more of a chance to fire off his NP. Having a main attacker that has a sure hit or ignore invincibility skill would be ideal, or you could simply equip them with a CE that has such an effect. Naturally, there are some other things to be cautious of. On Oberon's last HP bar, not being able to tell if he has a resistance to a card type because the icons are misleading can easily make you waste an NP. One way to deal with it is to only fire off your main attacker's NP when the effect on Oberon is for a card type other than your NP. You lose out on the possible benefit that his resistance is actually down, but it is safer this way. In this run, I just went for it, even though he could have had full arts resistance. Unfortunately, I got lucky, and MHXX's MP went through, though I was planning to save Scum if it didn't. And in general, just be mindful of where Oberon's MP gauge is at. With his first 2 skills, he can very quickly pull off an unexpected MP and ruin things in a hurry. When I was just testing out the waters, he surprised me with an earlier than expected NP from charging himself up. As for suggestions on main attackers, if you have her, I think the single target arts foreigner MHXX fits the bill nicely. She has full class advantage over Oberon, a 1-turn ignore invincibility, and a 1-turn damage increase against threats to humanity. Adding Castoria's own targetable 3-turn damage buff against threats to humanity, and this space cop should be able to scythe through Oberon's HP fairly easily. If you have the relatively recent Welfare SR foreigner Mysterious Idol X, then she could work for this battle as well. Idol X does 150% extra damage against enemies with the evil alignment. Her NP is AoE however, so the damage output won't be as focused, but her class advantage and Welfare Servant NP5 status should help to make up some ground on that. Another servant with an anti-evil niche is the extremely potent SR single target Arts Ruler Astrea, and she has an ignore invincibility built right into her NP. Combine the anti-evil damage bonus with Castoria's threat to humanity damage bonus, and even if Astrea does only neutral damage, it should be more than enough. The last one I'll highlight is one that recently came back on Raid Up, the SSR Berserker Morgan. While her MP is AoE, it does extra damage against Fey trait enemies, and the party NP overcharge buff it provides can be leveraged to various benefits in this battle. Those are just a few servants that bring some sort of advantage to this fight. Of course, there are others, so take a look at your roster and see if you have a particular servant that can at least work against one of Oberon's traits, if you're unable to field a foreigner for full class advantage. Well, hopefully this overview will be helpful for those that have not yet done this interlude. This wasn't originally in my plan to cover, but with that request, I figured why not. Please don't forget to hit that like button for more FGO content. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, cheers!